Well, hey there, guys. It has been a few months, but we are back here with the podcast. To my right, I have Tawny. How are you, Tawny?
Good.
And to my left, I have Tyler. Tyler, how are you?
Doing great.
Lots changed since the last time I had you on the podcast. We're going to get to that. Happy to have you guys back. This is our first podcast of 2023. Quick note, we are no longer the Digging Deeper podcast. Oh my gosh, Tim, why? Well, we are changing our name to the River Valley Podcast. That's it. Nothing else really is changing. A little bit of kind of how we're going to do our podcasts. But did you guys know that Digging Deeper is like one of the most popular church podcast names out there?
Really?
Yeah, like it's just, which it makes sense, right? We had that title to dig deeper into our content and our sermons. And if you were to like Google Digging Deeper Podcast, I think a lot of different podcasts.
There's a lot of river valleys too.
There is, yes, which we're hoping that Google locations lets people find our River Valley podcast a lot easier.
Where's the other big river valley? Michigan?
Somewhere.
Yeah.
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Minnesota. They have a
Yeah.
nice website, though, yeah.
No, they're a good church, it seems
I've
like.
had people email me for counseling from there before.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, where are you?
That's crazy.
So if you find me in public or at church and you say, oh, how's Digging Deeper? I'm not going to like, I'm just going to say it's good, but we are now the River Valley Podcast. We're excited. We're staying kind of on quo. We're going to do 2 podcasts a month. And we are kicking off this year. We're a week later than normal, but with the podcast, I think this is the 4th or 5th time we have done this. We actually did this before Digging Deeper was a thing. Just a year in review. So if you're joining us today, we are going to look at, I'm going to pick the brains of these two. We're going to look at resources, right? Books, podcasts, sermon series. I'm going to ask them about some of their most memorable experiences, some personal events that may have happened, and we're going to have some fun. So let's kick it off, huh, guys? So resources, we're going to do that. Resources, your favorite books, just full transparency. If you're asking me, it's favorite book. But if I'm asking these two, there needs to be a top 3 list. Tyler, we'll start with you. Really curious. I know that sometimes you track how many books you read a year. Did you do that this year?
I think it was around 70 or 80.
Okay, yeah. Same, basically, for me. I do recall there was a year, right, where you had a goal of 100 a year, but...
That was before I was married, I think.
Yeah, life picked up just a little bit. All right, so out of the 70 or 80 books, you got a top 2, 3, 5, 10?
Yeah, I really enjoyed a book called Sacred Fire. Tawny, was that one of yours? Oh, sorry, Tawny.
What are the odds?
It was so good. Yeah, and I think, did I recommend it to you or did someone else?
I saw it on the John
Yes.
Mark Comer's list.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Just such a good book, and I think maybe it's just at the stage of life that I'm in, where this book really ministered to me. But in short, it's about like how when we're younger, we wrestle with one set of sins and struggles and problems, and when we get older, we struggle with a different set. So like when we're younger, we usually struggle with lust, and we wrestle with sexuality and all these things. And when we're older, we usually maybe start wrestling with bitterness and resentment and
Right.
unfulfilled dreams and just as you know, we age a little bit, and especially as we enter into when we have less options for our lives, we can start to get jaded and cynical. And so anyway, it was a really good book that kind of challenged me as I'm entering into a new stage of life.
And name an author again?
Ronald Rolheiser, Catholic guy, but
Okay.
but writes for a broadly Christian audience,
Okay.
and is very aware that more than just Catholics are reading the book.
There was one really weird section about praying for the dead, but it was
Yeah.
interesting. But it was very Catholic-y.
Yes, that's true. That was kind of the one thing that I'm like, huh.
Yeah,
Not my favorite.
it was less weird than I expected it to be. But yeah, I love that book too. I felt like it was the best book I've read about the different seasons in life or the
Yeah.
different stages of life.
Totally.
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah. I want to read that one again. 'Cause
Yeah,
it was like one of those you need to read it like 2 or 3 times to get it all, I think.
Oh, totally. I think John Mark Comer says he reads it every year, every 5 years or something, and I could see that being one of those books that I continue to read and go back to. And let's see, what else? I read a book called Bullies and Saints about church history, and
geez.
just kind of the good, bad, and ugly of the church throughout the centuries. And there's a lot of fake news, in that area, but there's also real bad stuff that Christians have done.
Weren't perfect.
And it is just a historian writes it. It was really, really eye-opening, really good book. And I forgot what the other one was.
Too many to count back there. Well, if you think about it.
No, that's two good ones.
Okay, all right.
My other book was off of Mark Homer's list as well, and it was the Invitation to a Journey, and that was Robert Mulholland.
Ooh, I'll have to.
And it was really, really good. There was a lot in there about like working with your own personality for spiritual development, and working with who God made you to be rather than against your own nature, kind of. But Natalie, if she's not feeling good, so she's not here, but that was her favorite book of the year. And I asked her why, and she liked the way that he talked about sin, because he talked about it as something that inhibits us coming to a place of wholeness. Like, he presented it really well. Like, instead of saying it's something we fight against, it was more like it's something we want to overcome so that we can get to something better. And so that it was very inspiring in that way as well. That was really good, I thought. Nice. So.
Yeah, well, as the host, I didn't come up with a complete list all myself as well, but I did. I have the spiritual gift of starting a bunch of books. It's not that I don't read. I start them, and then they sit there. So who knows? Maybe 2023, I have like 10 different books that I finally finished. But Ruth Haley Barton actually is a book that really impacted me, I'd say middle of the year, probably when we were going through the spiritual discipline of the Silence and Solitude. Was that like March or April?
I think it was in the summer sometime.
Okay, yeah. Summer. Yeah, I remember I took that book to like the top of Table Rock, and just one of those like getaway. Took the day off work, and it was just one of those where you're like, all right, Silence and Solitude, getting away. I know I need to do it, right? Blah 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 blah. It needs to happen. But then you're reading it, and she's talking about like, this is how you know you need it, and this is what's going to happen. I was like, holy crud, like I'm right in the middle of that. And it's almost like she was able to kind of pick my brain and then put it on the paper. And so that was a big kind of woohoo moment. And then I just actually started her Strengthening the Soul of Your Leadership.
Yeah, that was a good one.
But that's not done yet. So
Sweet.
But yeah, so all right, so those are books. I'll do my best to get all of these on a list for our. We might as well just make a link to Comer's book list, since it looks like a lot of that.
Well, the other ones that were on there, we had already read. One was the Emotional Healthy Spirituality.
Oh, yeah.
And then another one was one of Ruth Haley Barton's. So,
yeah.
Yes,
Scazzero has to, we have to at least name drop him. I think we all read that book like once a year. His like 40-day kind of the daily office thing almost made my list, but it didn't. All right, so now we're going to switch to podcasts, and I actually think we have maybe the same answer. We'll go ladies first on this one. And I know our answer isn't your answer because you said you didn't listen to it, but what is your favorite podcast?
My favorite's probably Theology in the Raw. I love that one. I started listening
to that this year a lot.
Yeah, I love how he is willing to talk to anybody about anything, and he's so gracious in the way that he does it, but he's still so firm in his own convictions. And but I love how thoughtful and in depth he goes with topics that we're all wrestling with.
Oh, and he goes to topics where a lot of people wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah. I mean, he talks about a lot of social things, racial stuff, and
a lot of sexuality as well.
Yeah, and he's wrestling with the whole women in ministry thing right now. So he just talks about a lot of topics that we all spend time thinking about. So I love that one. I always listen to that one. And I did my top 3. My second one is Church of the City, because I love John Tyson's teachings a lot. And then the third one I did just for fun, because it's not a Christian podcast, but it's called Literally Reading. It's just for girls about novels. If you like to read novels, it's just so fun because they recommend all these books and talk about them.
So
and it's just really fun.
Specifically for girls who read novels?
Not girl, but mostly they're girls. It's very girly.
Gotcha.
But yeah, all my podcasts are either theology or novels. Those are all my.
Gotcha. All right. We'll hand the baton to Tyler. What are a few of yours?
I'll let you go first, Tim.
Well, actually, I have I have the one and then two kind of, again, just fun ones. The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill, which I had to look back and see if that was actually just the year 2022 was, if we actually listened to it in 2022 or not. It looks like it started in 2021, ended in 2022, so I'm counting it because I don't think I listened to it in 2021. But just a wild, I mean, if you're familiar with Mark Driscoll at all, but not even just that, right? It's not like it's a slash piece on him. I actually think they do a pretty good job of giving you the whole picture. But for me, it was just a really interesting look into church leadership and things that could go wrong. But yeah, Mars Hill was, I mean, there's a lot of cool things were happening there. So that was on your list as well, or
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was a good. Definitely. It was, lots of very thought provoking. I think
that's a good word for it,
yeah.
thought provoking.
I'm worried about some of the unintentional like cynicism and distrust and skepticism.
Yeah.
But that's in the air that we breathe right now. It's like we don't trust anyone or institutions or anything right now.
Well, I was watching, so like with that in mind, I was watching something on, it was called Hillsong, Megachurch Exposed. And it was a TLC, like three-part docuseries. But that was all, like, that was leaning heavily into the cynicism. It wasn't like, here's the big picture. It was like, we've interviewed everyone that's been hurt by the church, and we're going to expose them due to all the Carl Lentz stuff. And, like, I was even able just to, like, there was a difference between the two pieces, right? One was thought-provoking. The other one was, like, we're going to expose them. But, yeah, so that was mine. And then two fun ones. I think I mention this every year, Stuff You Should Know podcast. I don't know if you guys still listen, or I don't know if you've ever listened to it, but I don't know if you...
I haven't been recently.
Okay, all right. Yeah, no, it's a fun one. They journey through everything from how Mount St. Helens blew up to how the sun works to just, things. And then another fun, nostalgic one, if you're a 90s kid, the cast of Boy Meets World started a podcast.
Nerd.
This isn't nerd. This is just I'm a 90s kid. A fun show. I think it started in the 90s, early 2000s. And a couple of the cast just started doing the whole kind of like watch an episode, then talk about it, get some of the old cast members on. So if you were into Boy Meets World, it's called Pod Meets World, creatively named. Fun little have it on in the background while you're working kind of thing. So yeah, what do you got?
I like the Pour Over podcast for like Christian news, and it's really awesome. They give you kind of they help you stay informed. Hey, here's the news for the day, but without like manipulating you, and they always point you back to Christ. I think that's awesome. There's this podcast called The Rest is History, which is a history podcast, obviously, not by Christians, but they just did one on Jesus around Christmas time, and it was very, very interesting. And they have such like a high view of Jesus, even though they're not Christians, and so that was fascinating. And then the third one was Bible Project. They're still around. They're still around, still kicking, and so I appreciate them.
Yeah. So okay, the Pour Over. I subscribe to their newsletter, but their podcasts are like 5 or 6 minutes long, right?
Oh yeah, perfect.
So for me, that seems like I want to set something and let it run for an hour. So the idea of like having to change the podcast every 5 or 6 minutes seems a little tedious to me. But
for Type A checklist type people,
you love
perfect.
Okay, all right, yeah. Again, zero knock on the content from what I've read and how it's great. But
let's get to the point.
For me, I'm like, if you guys did a 45-minute podcast, I would listen. But 5 or 6.
It would be neat if the Pour Over did an in-depth, like once a week podcast. That would be really cool.
Sure.
Yeah. So if you're listening to us Pour Over, which you're absolutely not, please make your episodes longer. I think it's because I go like 5 minutes is just long enough for me to kind of start tuning out, and then I got 5 minutes more to tune back in.
Well, just occasionally, because some people like them short, some people like them long, so they should do both.
True. Yeah. All right. So. We're going to go down the list. I'm going to kind of mix it up a little bit. I want your guys' answers. I'm going to give you 2 of them. A sermon series, whether it was something we as a church did or a sermon series from somebody you listened to. And then do you guys have a favorite individual teaching that really stuck out to you? I actually couldn't think of anything off the top of my head for this one, so I'm going to see what you guys have to offer. We'll go ladies first again.
For me, it has to be our John series, but...
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I mean, but John's my favorite book in the Bible, so that it's hard to go wrong with that.
I'm surprised that you guys chose the John series, which was great, over like the Cross Culture series.
See, now that was a very difficult series, and it seems like many in our church appreciated it, if they're still here. They appreciated that series, and people were like, "Man, thank you for going there." But I know as a teacher, it was very difficult. Although difficult isn't always bad. But John was very rich.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, and the individual one, I just looked in my podcast feeder at the because if I really like a podcast, I'll save it and download it. And there were a couple from John Tyson's The Jesus Stuff series that I had saved. So they were individual, but if you want to give it a try, you could go check out The Jesus Stuff. I think that's what it was called. Yeah.
And that's his podcast?
Well, Church of the City. Yeah.
Okay.
Individual teaching, because I'm a teacher,
Which one of yours was your favorite, Tyler?
Favorite to preach though, was John chapter 6,
okay.
when Jesus preaches this really hard sermon, and most of his disciples leave, but the 12 sticks around, and it's the whole the famous hey, you guys want to leave too? And Peter's like, where else can we go? You have the words of life, and that one I think for me, and maybe for some of the people at Redwood who, well, like all of us, we struggle with doubt. And it was I think a really timely passage of scripture, at least for me, in kind of the world that we're living in.
Yeah. No, I would say that I just loved, I think the series that we were in 2022 was great for us as a church, and really encouraging altogether. So.
Did you have a favorite sermon that you gave? Anyone stand out? Or
No,
they're all good.
No, I'm trying to, it was just such a weird year of transition. I think for me, while I loved trying to look back at Rogue River and think on them is kind of tough because the ones at Sunny Valley have all been so special just because we're still in our infancy. But yeah, I'm trying to think. I think I had 2 out of the 9 in the cross culture series, race and something else. But Austin took a bulk of those. But I'm trying to remember. The race one was actually my last one at Rogue River. So what a way to
see ya.
Yes. I should have just dropped a really, really hot take or something and been like, adios. But,
All good.
Yeah. All right. So this one, if you still have your pen and your paper out, listeners, this is going to be kind of the end of our resources section. Most influential Christian voice or teacher in 2022. Cannot say yourself.
Wow. I wrestled with this one because, I don't know, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, everyone would have said Billy Graham, right? Because kind of everyone listened to one person.
Yeah.
But today, everyone's listening to different people. And if I think of those who have the most Instagram followers, like Joel Osteen or whatever, I'm like, oh, is that the most influential? Probably not. And then, okay, who's the most read? Or is it who's the most sang? Like, who writes the worship songs that we're all singing? And so I'm not sure how to answer your question. For me personally, I really like.
That's how I want you to answer
really?
the
Okay,
question.
cool. Yeah. Like John Mark Comer and John Tyson have been really influential for me over the last couple years. And but I think that the answer for me is Tim Keller. And he's got pancreatic cancer, so we don't know how much longer he'll be around. But he's been really helpful to me.
Okay. Keller was going around my mind. Ruth Elliott Barton, I know, has been a very influential author to a lot of the people on our staff. Yeah. Who are you going to add to that Mount Rushmore?
Well, I was thinking about this too. This is the question I wrestled with the most because I'm like, ooh, I don't even like this question just because the whole celebrity thing and blah blah blah.
I should have been more clear because I was totally going for the most influential to you.
Okay. Yeah, that's better. But I was thinking about it too. So a lot of times when something touches me deeply, I don't think about the person doing it. I really feel like it's a gift from God. And so
God is the most influential.
So I was like, but I can't say the Holy Spirit because Tim will make so much fun of me. Because you say that's what I always say. But
I don't
really
make fun of you. I highlight that.
But I for me, like I was talking about John Tyson, I feel like he's more of a prophet than a teacher, even maybe. Like he seems so in touch with God's heart and what God's wanting to do on the earth right now. And I think that's why I like listening to him so much. But Ruth Haley Barton, that was on Natalie's list. And she said she likes her so much because she just tends so much to our souls. We kind of forget about our souls. Sometimes we're just thinking about our bodies or our, spirituality. But so those two, yeah.
50 years ago it was Billy Graham. 5 years ago it was Donald Trump. Now who's no.
Tim. Boo.
Oh boy.
I'm totally kidding.
I hear he's Presbyterian.
I was trying to think of some, as a joke, some political figure that is intertwined with a lot of Christianity.
Now everyone's turning off Digging Deeper, Tim.
Yeah.
Wait,
good
RV
thing it's not-
podcast.
Good thing it's not digging deeper anymore.
Yeah, hey.
All right. Well, now, and this isn't a means to turn you away from the resources and on to like. Now I want to kind of ask you guys about some experiences, and I still think that this could be beneficial for you guys as the listeners. We got through a year of spiritual disciplines, and again, the 12 we went through as a church aren't the only 12 there, but the spiritual discipline that impacted you guys the most in your personal life. My body's leaning towards looking at you, so we're going to start with you.
I don't know if this was one, but just the idea of like praying through the Psalms. Was that one of them?
Prayer was.
Like,
But
prayer
it
slash
was one of our part of our
Yeah,
prayer practices.
praying scripture. Okay.
I think.
Yeah, just like when I don't know what to pray, I like open up the Psalms and just kind of, pray through and read through those. So
Yeah.
that's been very impactful for me.
Okay.
Mine's prayer too. Actually, this is the first year that I've kind of really practiced the breath prayer, where you just breathe in a little phrase and then breathe out a different phrase, and just like, I shall not be in want. God is enough, something like that. I was just surprised how much it impacted me when I would pray. If I was feeling anxious, to just pray little short prayers like that over and over until my heart calmed down. I was surprised how impactful that's been.
Nice.
It's amazing how like a deep breath like can help prepare our bodies, minds, hearts for prayer, for meeting with God, for reading the Bible. Like, because we're such an anxious go people that just stopping and breathing is, I think, so fundamental, but
Yeah.
so neglected.
Yeah, it's like your body doing a diagnostics check or something. Like it just kind of like regulates. All right, boom, we're good. Move forward.
Well, yeah, and part of that whatever you just said, diagnostic check is just like, for me, just trying to figure out what do I need to hear right now. Just identifying that is part of that's been really helpful. So
That's good.
I didn't prompt you guys with this one, but was there one that was kind of a struggle for you guys, or one where you're like, man, I was below average in that, or maybe I didn't like it, or
are you asking, did I fail at fasting again, Tim? Yes, I did.
Absolutely not. I'm not asking that. Well, no, I only asked that because I actually had one in my mind that kind of disappeared in 2022, and so I'm kind of like, all right, but
So what's yours?
Well, okay, my favorite one was Silence and Solitude, as I had. So I entered into 2022 with a 3-month-old and exited on today actually with a 16-month-old, 15th. Math ain't working out
Good
well.
math.
Yeah, sorry. Maybe she was 4 months. So all that to say, the Sabbath kind of went out the window. And I know that the tension was like, oh man, I'm trying to do this and this, and it's like, okay, I have to redefine it. But it kind of went to the side. But the Silence and Solitude really kind of stepped in and helped. And so this year, 2023, I'm like, all right, what is kind of really establishing that consistent Sabbath look like? So
I had a hard time with practicing the presence, not because I don't believe in it, but it was just hard for me.
Yeah.
And along with the silence and solitude, it's like very difficult. And it's like, oh, I don't feel anything. I'm not sensing anything. I don't feel God's presence,
Right.
So, but maybe like the Psalm thing I just said, like maybe that was my favorite because it gave me words when I didn't have any. Even though
and
we don't-
oftentimes those authors were kind of in the same boat, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. So that one was hard for me.
I just realized when you were talking, Tyler, that for me, practicing the presence, it's not so much about feeling as it is about remembering. Like if I remember I'm in God's presence all day,
Right.
and I never feel alone because I know I'm in His presence, I feel like I practice it.
Sure.
So maybe for some people it's emotional, and other people it's more logical.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Oh, wait, I just remembered. I did read a really good book on fasting.
Nope,
this
we
year.
missed that. No.
Well, I didn't practice fasting, but I read a good book about it. It was Scott McKnight. He wrote a book like way long time ago, probably 15
read
years
that.
ago or something. And I really liked it. It was very much about not being formulistic and the reasons that we would fast and how we would fast. It was good. So, I'll read it a couple more times and then maybe I'll practice it.
I enjoyed that digging deeper. I believe that was you and Michelle. I think I had on the fasting one. Was it?
I think so,
think
yeah.
so.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good one.
Easy to talk about.
Yeah. Super easy. to talk
Fasting's
about.
great.
Yeah. Our next one is, and I'm kind of excited about this one, is to hear your guys' answers. I actually have to think about mine a little bit. The most impactful news headline of 2022. Now, this could be something that meant a lot to you personally and maybe not a lot to anyone else. It could have been like kind of a negative headline that just sent ripples through the country, kind of made everybody think about whatever. And I'm going to try and think while you guys are talking, but I'm also going to be listening. But what kind of news headline stuck out to you guys?
Well, the only thing that jumps out in my mind as I'm freaking out a little bit is how advanced artificial intelligence is getting. Because, Jesus is in control and he has a timeline for history and all that. But I really don't want to be hiding from androids, in my
Rise
lifetime.
of Elon Musk.
Or iPhones.
Yeah.
What'd you say, Tyler?
Or iPhones.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I'm more worried about I think I saw some movie when I was about 10 and the androids were squishing people's heads or something.
Oh, wow.
So it's one of those things that
I,
stayed
Robot.
with me a little too long.
Tyler, did the World Cup make your list of top
Oh,
headlines?
it didn't, but it could have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had something else going on that week, but
No, I think Russia's invasion of
Yeah,
Ukraine
that's-
kind of a big
Oh,
deal.
That was just
in
last
terms of-
year. It seems like it's been going on
It was
forever.
2022, right?
Yeah.
Kind of all
Yeah.
blends together.
right.
Locally, I think many articles about is the homelessness and that issue in our community, and I do a lot of running, and so I often see people posted up in tents and stuff, and I think that's just been a very difficult issue for our community to wrestle with, and so that in terms of local news, I've been thinking a lot about that.
Your
Yeah.
answer's so much better than mine. What about
No,
you, Kim?
actually, yours is legit. That little
Yeah.
chat box thing.
Yeah.
It comes up with essays for you.
Yeah. And therapy.
Wow.
Yeah, people are using it for that.
I'm kind of bummed because I didn't think about it more. But the Ukraine invasion definitely, and I'm also having trouble dating this. And I've talked about this before, but like mental health in sports is always seems to rear its ugly head. And while that wasn't a very like specific conversation, you see like there were some athletes earlier this season. An athlete just kind of in the middle of the football game kind of took off his pads and his uniform, left the game, and said, "See you later, alligator." And it's just like there's definitely seemed to be some sort of crisis of mental health, and so several things even in the beginning of the football season, which now we're at the end of the football season, but that's just kind of fascinating to me seeing those play out. I'm really bummed because something really wild happened in the NFL, but it was literally the third day of 2023.
Yeah, can't talk about it.
So we can't talk about it, and I'll have to put it in my notes that it happened next year. But it was pretty cool even for the kingdom. Which reminds me, I want to start a journal of just like thoughts a day, so that something like this I can look back and be like, oh yeah, that did happen. But yeah, the Damar Hamlin situation was what I was talking about. You can Google it if you're unfamiliar with that. But it was 2023, not 2022. So now, unless you guys have any other news headlines that are rolling, okay, we're switching to personal. I want the listeners to get a little get to know you guys a little more. I'm gonna start with you, Tawny. Biggest personal event that happened in the 365 days of 2022.
The biggest one is my youngest daughter moved out in May, so we're done raising kids.
So you're officially an empty nester, is what you're
Well,
saying.
no, because we still have our oldest
Okay.
kid at home, but I'm not responsible for him. He's
You're a landlord, right? Not
yeah. He just somebody to hang out and read with. I don't have to worry about all the other stuff, so it's just a new time of freedom and. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And on the other end of that spectrum, Tyler,
Yep.
biggest personal event.
Had a baby.
Had
I didn't.
First baby.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
First child, first grandbaby on both sides.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Exciting for everybody.
Elizabeth May Goins.
Yeah.
And that was at the end of November.
Right. Yeah. So Tyler, it was very, I don't know if kismet's the right word, but very fun as a soccer fan. You had your baby, and then the few weeks that you had off were right in the middle of the World Cup.
It was perfect. Almost almost too perfect. It's
Right.
planned.
Right.
Well, Rachel told all of us that you were way more eager to be up with Clara when there was soccer on late into the night.
I won't say that I was eager, but when Clara was going through teething and cried at 2:30 in the morning, it was a great opportunity to address the situation and then check and see how that first game was going on in the qualifying rounds.
There you go.
But yeah, and we actually had Clara in the beginning of the NFL season in 2021, so it really, the Lord's just blessing all the dads out here. I guess.
So, Tyler, what's the most surprising thing so far about having a baby?
Ooh,
Most surprising thing.
that's a good one.
I mean, it's all the things you knew, like in your head, but didn't know experientially, like sleep deprivation, or you're constantly checking on them to make sure they're breathing, and just all those things. But yeah, I guess just how much work they are. Like I knew it, but I didn't experience it.
Wait till they're walking.
Yeah, right.
No. Don't wait. Just enjoy where you're at now.
Yes, do that too.
But it is wild that a little creature that can't move, can't really do much, is so much work, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. No.
Very dependent.
Well, if you didn't have to feed him every 2 hours, it would help.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
All right. Well, with that, and I don't know if this will have to do with fatherhood or not, but what are you most excited about for 2023?
Yeah, I mean, definitely watching my daughter grow up, and then our family. It's very different from Karina and I. Now it's just it's a very different.
And don't forget Ginger, your cat.
And our cat. And then personally excited about running Boston Marathon in April.
Which, let's not forget, in 2022, if it wasn't for the birth of your daughter, one of your biggest highlights would have been checking off your first marathon.
Yep, that I did Eugene. In last April, and that was a really cool experience.
Yeah, Boston. That's in April. You said. Wow. I'm gonna vicariously run that marathon through you.
Sweet.
And just
Me
kind of
too,
like
me
feel
too.
like I did it as well. No, that's awesome. So yeah, you're just gonna go over there. That's gonna be a really cool experience.
And then one of my like little funny goals is I want to cook a ribeye steak by myself, which I'm not good at cooking.
Okay,
things, so
all right.
Eric can maybe help
Get
me.
a thin cut.
A thin cut.
Yeah, that's really easy.
Sweet.
Just
Yeah.
cook it like a pork chop.
Thank you.
All right. If you have any tips, go
Yep,
ahead.
put them in the
email
comments
Yeah,
below.
in the comments, and I would like to be there to test out your
Okay,
ribeye.
okay.
Yeah. Because even if
Are you sure?
Yeah, even if you swing and miss, it can't be that bad.
Ribeyes are the best because they're good even if you overcook them a little.
Nice.
It's so
Yeah.
weird. One of my goals was actually to eat a ribeye this
Whoa.
year.
One?
Just one. Tawny.
So I'm turning 50 this spring, and my husband and I are going on our honeymoon. After
Wow.
being married for 28 years. Well,
Nice.
almost 28 years then. But we're going to go on a long trip and go down to Galveston, see his sister. And we've never been along the Gulf Coast. So they were going to drive to New Orleans for a couple days, then to this little town in Georgia that has a really cool bookstore that I want to see. And they're also having a Rose Festival thingy. And so we're going to spend there a couple of days, go see his parents in Florida. Then we're going to go spend a week in the Keys. So I'm
Nice.
very, very excited about that.
What island?
We're going to be, I can't even say it, is Isla Mirada.
Okay.
It's wherever Bloodlines was filmed.
Sweet.
We wanted to stay in the resort where it was filmed, but it's too expensive, so we're staying in another one.
Very
But
cool.
Anyway, I'm very, very excited because we've never done anything like this. We're going to fly to Texas and then rent a car and drive over and then fly back from Miami. So
Isla Mirada, why does that sound like that probably translates to something regarding like Death Island or something like that?
I think it's the fishing capital of the United States.
Wow.
I think
Wow.
that's what it is. Yeah.
Sweet.
What about you?
What am I looking forward to?
Yes.
Not running a marathon.
Didn't you write these questions too?
I did, but like I said, I wrote them because I had 3 guests that were going to take all the time, so I didn't. I think I'm excited about what Sunny Valley is going to look
Oh,
like
yeah.
in the
Nice.
year. Personal note, I think we're planning to take Clara to Disneyland in June or in the summer. So that'll just be a really fun experience.
And she won't remember anything, so you'll have to take her back again in a couple of years.
Right, and I mean, we are definitely going for her and not me, right? So yeah, I think that's what I'm looking forward to. Obviously, what I was a big fan of in 2022 was being able to kickstart Sunny Valley. So probably to see where that's going to be in the next year.
Sweet.
So yeah, I'm not running a marathon, not turning 50 yet, but I guess final note, I guess I am at my birthday this year officially entering middle age. Apparently, middle age is 35.
Oh, that's so funny. I didn't think I was middle aged till I was like 45, and then I was like, oh, you know what? I probably am around now. I'm like way over
35 is
halfway.
middle age, huh?
Yeah, I mean,
That seems young.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel great. So I don't know what you're supposed to feel middle age, but I don't feel it. So, any final thoughts, guys, before I ramble some more? Any things I didn't mention that you wanted to take a swing at?
Oh, if we would have
Yes.
talked about random stuff we discovered in 2022.
Favorite random stuff.
There's a tea company, if you like tea, called Plum Deluxe. I can't talk today. Plum Deluxe. That's in Portland, but you can go online to their website, and they have loose leaf tea, and it's the best tea I've ever tried in my life.
Best tea in the world. All
Well,
right.
I love tea, and it's like the best tea I've ever had. So
Okay.
they take forever for shipping, but it's not super expensive, and it's delicious.
So order it now, and you'll have it by 2024.
You'll have it in about 2 weeks, but that's a long time.
Wow.
We know. I'm used to Amazon Prime.
All right. So maybe go to the store, suffer through some normal box tea or whatever, and then
Yeah.
order this before, and you'll be good. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys. Tyler, do you have anything? Any random favorites?
Did DoorDash for the first time a week ago.
Okay.
That's pretty cool.
I haven't done that yet.
Someone got us a gift card for when we were on,
Oh, yeah.
Baby
what do you
duty?
call it? Baby duty, yeah. See, my brain doesn't work.
Right.
But that was cool. They like leave it at your door and
Super cool.
Yeah.
What's weird is when you open up the door when you think they've left and they haven't, and they're like taking a photo of it. You're like, oh, jeez.
that would be awesome to get in that photo.
It would. I mean, I'm sure it would boost their rating, right? Because they send that to confirm that they did it, and a happy customer in the background can't hurt. DoorDash is super fun.
It works.
Yeah, it does. We've had a couple times where they've had to cancel. Like, you order it, and then like 20 minutes later, they're like, psych. But,
Well, then you're really hungry.
yeah, but man, those are first world problems. So,
Yeah, that for sure.
all right, well, listeners, if you're still with us, I appreciate it.
Sorry.
What we're doing. So, just a quick look into kind of what we're going to look at next year. One of our podcasts is going to be kind of what we did last year with kind of discussing some biblical worldview topic. But then Nat is going to join me for diving into people's stories. So you members of the church, once a month, we are going to get somebody here and just listen to their story and how God has impacted their life. So that is our goal for the next episode here of the podcast. Tune in. It's going to be great. Guys, thank you. We'll see you again, I'm sure. Listeners, thank you. Catch you next time.